What qualities make a good leader?
So I'll jump in, and this will. Some of the things I have written down here is effective communication skills, and of course, that factors in listening skills as well. I can tell you, I work, have a virtual team, and so my manager is actually located in several states away. And, he has a difficult time in connecting me with the virtual team as well. So the communication piece is crucial. So I'm learning that. This is the first time I've been virtual before, as far as having a virtual team. And I can definitely see the positives and the negatives of what we do in the environment, the technology we live in. But right now, just the fact that I don't feel like I'm part of the team a lot of times. So definitely effective communication, being able to use the technology to the benefit.
What kinds of things would you want your leader to do differently?
For me, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just simple things. Just we have what's called stand-ups, and we have team meetings, and even it's again a lot of it's technology driven. Some of my complaints or my concerns, but it just if we have a fraud event that we stand up, he'll pull the team together, and it's not really handled appropriately. There's never an agenda for the team meetings. It's kind of a fly by the seat of the pants kind of situation. So just governing or managing the meetings better, and then bringing everybody involved into it, getting some feedback, those kind of things. A lot of simple stuff.
Yeah, no meeting agenda is difficult. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and as a leader, it drives me nuts. I don't know how he does it. It would be stressful not to have something in front of me to know where I'm going with.
Awesome. Ryan?
Yeah, so I would like to just echo that communication is a key part to good leadership. And kind of some of the notes that I had written down were the complexity of communication. So just ensuring that you're being effective as a communicator. And then also just kind of touching on some of the bad leadership, and that, ethics plays a huge part. And then also being too rigid. So those are the things that I think are the big things that I find in good leaders or bad leaders. The ones that are just too rigid and don't communicate, I think, are the ones that I think fall short of being a good leader.
Definitely. Zach?
For me, and just from my own personal experience, because I've had good leaders, and good leaders for me were whenever I interacted with them, I always believed they would do whatever they asked me to do. So if they asked me to go clean a toilet that was like covered in poo or something like that, then I would believe that they'd go do that too, something that they would go do. And they're just asking me to do it because of the situation requires it. In the Army, they have a acronym. Sorry, is that correct? Acronym? Yeah, I think so. That it's leadership. It's spelled LDR ship, and it stands for loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And for me, I think all good leaders kind of espouse that sort of way of conducting themselves. And with bad leaders, from my experience, simply kind of translates to I've always felt, and most of the people that I've worked with have, even the hardest working ones that have worked there, people who worked for 10 years, and I believe are more hard working than me, will complain that they feel very, very unappreciated, that nothing that they do really matters, and they'll cry after their shifts and stuff like that, and they give more effort. They're loved by all the customers and everyone that they work with, but because the leadership that they're under won't tell them that they're doing a good job, they feel horrible about it. So leadership to me is also about meeting the needs of the people who are under you or your underling.
Definitely. I think when I took a look at what I felt like good leadership was, I looked at those different definitions of leadership. And the two that really stood out for me were leadership as service, which I think is kind of what you're talking about.
Exactly what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, like servant leadership, right?
Exactly.
The actual definition, or like what was in the activity, was the perspective of leadership speaks to the motives and intentions of the leader, proposing that effective leader acts from the desire to be of service of others. I think very similar to you, when I experience good managers, that's what I see, is that kind of servant leadership. And then the other one that really stood out to me, because I try to imagine that I lead this way, is leadership as development, which is, they highlight the importance of knowing and expressing who they are as a leader, and the definition is that they recognize for personal development and their people under them, so they can deal with the challenges brought by a change. So I really kind of lead by that motto. As a store manager, I have 27 partners that work for me. To lead them, I need to make them lead themselves, so that I don't have to, pull each one of them or babysit each one of them. They can make those decisions on their own. So those are the things that really stood out for me.
I like that you use the word pull. A lot of times in leadership, what I've found, people who are moving more from a servant leadership perspective will say, I'm wanting to pull someone because you're already there and you're trying to help them to get there. People who aren't coming from that perspective will say they're trying to push someone into a better position. And there's a difference between a pull kind of leadership and a push kind of leadership. And my experience has been, just for me, and this is different for other people. Some people require a push kind of leadership and a little bit more micromanagement. If you're not as effective, I can't remember what the course was, but it focused, I can't remember, it was a multi-purpose something leadership. Can't remember what the particular type was, but basically you were able to adjust your leadership style based on what the needs of your employee or your follower was. So say that your employee was really far along in their development, then you would take on much less hands-on experience. You would focus more on giving them tasks that were suitable for them. So if I'm working with a partner who has a lot of experience.
Partner is Starbucks word for employee, by the way. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So if I'm working with a fellow employee that has more experience than me, is very good at their job, then I don't need to focus so much on development or micromanaging every single thing that partner does. Instead, what I would do is give them a general idea of what they need to do during the shift, and then they'll get it done. I don't need to provide many specifics. But if you have a brand new person, then you're going to want to get a lot more in depth. Sometimes you want to bring in like a list of things that you want them to do, what specific time it needs to get done, and then they kind of like memorize it and then just kind of find their own unique way of getting those things done. So leadership is about adaptive leadership. Leadership is about adapting to
we'll add that into our definitions.
Yeah.
Awesome. Chris, I skipped you when it came to poor leadership qualities. I guess we sort of talked about like the things you're missing from your boss, but anything else you want to add?
Again, just falling back on some of the personal experiences and such, leaders that tend to create controversy, and I think that to hide their inability to lead and to deflect the focus onto somebody else instead of on what they're failing to do. So that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. but it's definitely would be detrimental to the team.
Yeah. So I picked out 3 things. I couldn't decide on less than that because these 3 things are like what makes a bad leader for me. The first was selfishness. So self-centeredness is a particular problem for some leaders because they're impulsive and they want positions of power. So that means that oftentimes they're identified as leaders by others, but really they're just kind of working for themselves and not for others, which makes sense that I chose that because it's kind of the opposite of servant leadership, which was critical for the leader. The other one I thought was really interesting because I felt like this has happened to me sometimes, environmental factors, which was labeled as pressure to meet aggressive goals, an intense competition to maintain market share, or perception of an outside threat. So I feel like sometimes you have a boss that is just like, we need to hit this number, we need to hit this number, and you do everything and sacrifice your ethics, which you guys mentioned, to be able to get that number, and so that in turn makes you a bad man. You may get the number, but probably not in the right way. And that's definitely happened to me. I have done it before, and it also has happened to me. So it's something I'm trying to be aware of, and it automatically like sets something off in my brain where I'm like, oh, this is not the right way to lead somebody. And then the other one was incompetence. I definitely felt like there are times when I see someone on my team and I'm like, how did you get this job? I don't know. They lack like practical or social intelligence, they're careless or lazy, things like that. So those 3 for me are really what like determines a bad leader, I guess. So, yeah. All
There's
right.
only one more thing I wanted to add to also is the efficiency of a leader. I don't think we talked about that. So like they were talking about creating an agenda is what I'm getting at. So the efficiency of leading your team on a timely fashion. I think that was another part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just that if you're going to be a good leader, you need to be a good follower too. So and you need to be able to demonstrate that to others. That's basically the point, to put it in short, since we're running short on time. So that's important. That's important for leaders as well, to be able to be good followers.
I think too, sometimes followers have like a negative connotation, and sometimes you have to be a follower and sometimes you need to be a leader. It's kind of a mixture of both, and you need to find that balance, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, great discussion.